Welcome to Unit 2. We're going to review the test, and we're going to do it in two parts. Today will be part 1. We'll get through 1 through 15 today. Let's get started. Question number 1 and 2 are very similar. They're asking you to add these decimals. In your head, they want you to use the associative property. Question number 2 actually is using the associative property already. They have grouped 7 and 77 and 75 hundredths with 4 and 89 hundredths. They're asking you to add these two together first. That's what the parentheses tell you. Of course, with associative property, you are allowed to regroup them in any order that you wish, as long as we are adding, and we're adding with all three numbers. So when you're adding three numbers together, you can simply rearrange them any way you want. And so in order to do this properly, you would do this mentally, and then of course I would ask you to check your work by lining them up and adding them and making sure your mental math was correct. Don't forget, when adding them up, quick demonstration that you should be, it doesn't really matter which number you put first. I like to put the largest number first. This is not the largest number, it just has the most digits. But whenever you line them up, however you do it, the second number, third and fourth, you should be putting the decimals first and then filling in the numbers around it. This will give you the best opportunity to not make any mistakes in lining up your decimals. It may seem like an easy thing to do, but a lot of times when we're not putting the decimal first, we're not lining them up correctly. When you do line them up correctly, you would look for any spaces that are not filled, like this one here, and we'll fill those in with zeros. That's really important to remember to do that, especially when subtracting. Don't forget to regroup if you need to. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3 and 4 are both similar problems. You're asked to choose all of the answers, number 3, all of them, there could be more than one, that represents the digit 8, where it is 10 times the value in the number that's provided. So in this number, it's 4 and 381 thousandths. And which of these answers are showing the digit 8? All of them have the digit 8 in them. So which one of these, or which ones of these, are showing the digit 8 where it's worth 10 times more than it is in this number? How do we know how to do that? Let's review our place values and see what's going on with them as we start to move from left to right. We're looking at our place values here. If I were to put the digit 1 in the ones place, how much would that be worth? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. The easiest way is to multiply the digit by the place value. The place value is ones, and the digit is 1. 1 times 1 is 1, so it's worth 1. The next place value, which is the tens, if I were to put the number 1 in that place value, it would be worth 1 times its place value, 10, which is 10. And if I were to put the same one in the hundreds place, I would multiply 1 times 100 to come up with its value, and it's worth 100. I could do the same thing on the other side of the decimal, and I will do that in just a second. But let's take a look at how our numbers are working and find some patterns here. If we're moving from right to left here, we could see that our value of the digit 1, as we go from one place value to the next, is increasing. We're going from 1 to 10, which is exactly 10 times. 10 is 10 times as much as 1, so we're increasing by 10. If we go from the tens place to the hundreds place, we're also increasing, and the pattern's not going to change. We're increasing by 10. 10 times 10 equals 100, and that's how you get it, so we're increasing by 10 there as well. So you can see quickly just from the first three place values that going from right to left is increasing the value of the number by 10. The value of the digit is increasing by 10. This is important because the question asks us to answer or to find all the numbers that are increasing the value of the 8 by 10. And so what happens when we go the opposite direction here? If we were to go this direction, we could see that we're going from 100 to 10 and from 10 to 1, and then thereby we'd be doing the opposite, which is decreasing the value of the number by 10. That is not going to change when we get to the other side of the decimal. On this side of the decimal, if I were to put a 1 in the tenths place, that would be worth 1 times a tenth or 1/10. If I were to put a 1 in the hundredths place, it would be worth 1 times 100th or 100th. If I were to put a 1 in the thousands place, it would be worth 1 times 1,000th or 1 1,000th. And you can see the pattern developing again here. Going from 10 to 100 is times 10. And going from 100 to 1,000 is also times 10. So things are changing by 10. But don't forget, even though it looks like they're increasing, they're actually decreasing by 10 as we go from left to right. They are still decreasing. Remember that 1 out of 10 is more than 1 out of 100. 1 out of 100 is more than 1 out of 1,000. So we're still decreasing by 10. That hasn't changed. And if we were to go from from right to left, we would see that we're increasing still by 10. Because, as we just mentioned, that 1 out of 1,000 is very small, 1 out of 100 is larger, and 1 out of 10 is larger still. But each time you go from one place value to the next, it's changing by 10, or changing by a multiple of 10. So let's go back to that question. The question is asking you which of these numbers is the number 8 10 times what it's worth here. So we just learned that numbers increase in value when you go from right to left. So now you can just look for numbers that have the 8 in the correct place value. Number 5 is asking you to write this number in expanded form. And what I will do for you is I will write a similar type of number, one using decimals, to remind you how to do that. In expanded form, you're used to with whole numbers. We just simply take the 23 and break it into its place value or its values. And the 2 is in the tens place, so it's worth 20. We're going to add that to the value of the next digit, which is just worth 3. And now the unique part, the new part to you, is we're going to add now the value of the 4, which is 4/10. Now you should write that as a decimal, 4/10. And then add to that the value of the 7, which is 7/100. And don't forget, 7/100 is a decimal with a 0 and a 7. Remember to put your lines first and then fill in your blanks so that you don't miss that. It has to show 7/100, and without that 0, it shows 7/10. This would be the correct form and the correct way to do expanded notation or expanded form with number 5. And number 6, you're to write this number in standard form. Well, this is standard form. This standard, another word for standard, is just simple normal, the normal way of doing things. So write this number that's written out in words in a standard form number. Number 7 is simply asking you to write this number in word form. We've practiced this, and I've taught you that what you will need to do, because you will make mistakes on this the first time you do it, it's highly unlikely that you would get it exactly right the first time. So expect to have to go back and reread the number 9 57/100. Keep saying that number as you're writing the words out. Do the best you can to spell them properly. Go back, read the number, read your words, read the number, read your words. Go back and forth like that until you see that you have written it exactly the way you say it. Number 8 and number 9 will be taken off the test. Number 10 is simply asking you to write inside of this box one of these two numbers. The number you write should be using the number 5 to show the largest value for the number 5. So which of these two numbers is the number 5 the greater value? That's the number you'll write in the box. Number 11 says select the number that shows the digit 4 with a value of 4/100. Mark all that apply. This is a really simple question. In other words, there's only one place the number 4 could be to represent 4/100. Go through each of these numbers, find where the 4 is in each digit. If the 4 is in the hundreds place, you should be bubbling. Number 12 and 13 are asking you to compare. Remember the rules for comparing the things that I ask you to do. If you were to compare these two decimals, first thing I ask you to do is to circle the whole number and then compare the whole numbers. If the whole numbers are equal, as they are here, Then you would go to the tens place and compare them. And only the tens place unless they're equal. These are not equal. The 2 is greater than 0, so the greater sign would go there. And don't forget, there are many ways to trick you up when you're comparing decimals. They might have something like this on a test, in which case you're still going to follow the procedures of circling the whole numbers, comparing them, and if they are the same, going to the tens place, and if they are the same, going to the hundredths place. The hundredths place here is a 0 on the right-hand side, but here there is nothing there. Well, another word for nothing is 0, so really these two are identical. And this concludes Unit 2, Part 1 review for the test.